Grandma reveals a frightening family secret from her past that astounds everyone. The rain hammered against the old windows of the estate as Claire, Jake, and Sophie stared at their grandmother Rose, who sat in her creaking chair, eyes glinting with something that felt like mischief or madness. Thunder growled outside, a fitting backdrop for the storm brewing inside. "You think you know your family?" Rose's voice trembled, but there was a spark of fire in her gaze. Suddenly, it felt like the walls were closing in. "Let me tell you about the pact. It was made generations ago, and it still breathes." What could she mean? The siblings exchanged uneasy glances. Claire, the ambitious eldest, felt the tightness in her chest. She had always believed knowledge was power, but now it felt like a shackle. Jake, the protective brother, shifted in his chair, muscles tense. He could sense something ominous lurking in the shadows of their shared past. And Sophie, the independent sister, pushed her long hair back behind her ear, feeling a strange mixture of anger and sadness toward the woman she hardly knew anymore. "Your great-grandfather," Rose said, leaning in close, voice barely above a whisper. "He made a deal that cursed our family, a blood pact with shadows. They demand a price." She gestured toward the dimly lit corners of the room. The siblings shifted in their seats, each heartbeat louder than the last. Dust motes danced in the torchlight, and the air crackled with a strange energy. "People go missing," Rose continued, her eyes widening in a wild way. "They vanish when the thunder roars, just like tonight." Her trembling hands clutched the armrests, and Claire felt the lump rise in her throat. Could this really be true? Her pragmatic mind struggled to digest the absurdity of it all. "But what does that mean for us?" Jake snapped, trying to maintain any semblance of composure. "Are we in danger? Is it about the inheritance?" "Your father do. He was meant to fulfill the terms of that pact," Rose murmured, voice breaking. "He was the last hope, but he didn't obey, and now—" Her words hung thick in the air, heavy with unspoken dread. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the old estate, and for a moment, they all saw something shift, almost imperceptibly in the corners of the room. Sophie rubbed her arms, feeling the chill creep beneath her skin. "You knew this and didn't tell us?" Fury bubbled within her. "You kept it from us all these years? And what was I supposed to do? Burden you with a family curse that may not even be real?" Rose snapped back, her nerves fraying. "You think this is easy for me? You need to listen." The air thickened, heavy like wet wool, pressing down as thunder rumbled again, almost in agreement. Cryptic occurrences began to plague their stay. Shadows flickered, whispers flitted along the edges of their hearing, and every creak in the house sent icy dread through their veins. Tensions rose, each sibling painted in their own shade of fear and doubt. Then, an unsettling chill washed over Claire as she recalled the strange photo in the attic, hidden beneath the loose board, a gathering of family members, eyes hollow, gazing into the distance. In a flash, she understood the risk. "Wait!" she shouted, suddenly alarmed. "What if one of us is already part of this curse?" Just then, the lights flickered. The world outside raged, and a profound silence swept through the room, leaving an unsettling question hanging in the air. Could they unravel the mystery before the darkness consumed them all? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to. miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Claire's heart thudded in her chest, the weight of Rose's words suffocating. What if one of us is already part of this curse? She repeated. Voice edged with panic. The flickering light cast strange shadows on the walls, and for a moment, everything halted. Just then, Jake shot up from his seat, gaze fixed on the window. Look, he barked. Rain lashed against the glass. But there was something more. There, illuminated by a jagged slice of lightning, was a figure standing in the garden. It was drenched, hair plastered to its face, but the outline was unmistakable. Who the hell is that? Sophie squinted, fear clawing at her throat. It can't be. But before she finished, Rose gasped, her face draining of color. No, it can't be possible. Who is it? Claire asked, her voice barely a whisper, heart racing. A gut feeling tightened in her stomach, the unshakable dread that something monumental was about to unfold. With trembling hands, Jake rushed to the door, flinging it open against the howling wind. He stepped outside, the storm swallowing him whole. Wait, Claire called, but it was too late. The door slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the stillness that followed. The air inside the room thickened again, tension crackling like static. All they could do was watch. Seconds felt like hours. And then, the desperate, confused cries of Jake pierced the night. Get back! He shouted, and Claire instinctively grabbed Sophie's arm. They rushed to the door, hearts pounding. The cold air blasted into the hall as they opened it wide, and they stepped into the storm, where sheets of rain obscured their view. Jake! Claire yelled, voice drowned by the thunder. The garden loomed mystifying ahead, the figure still standing unnervingly still. Get away! Jake shouted, and as the siblings fought through the rain, they saw it clearly. A woman. Her features obscured by the downpour, but there was an undeniable familiarity to her. Mom? He whispered, eyes wide in disbelief. The figure lifted her head, and in one horrifying moment, Claire and Sophie's blood ran cold. It was their mother, lost for years, presumed dead in that tragic accident. But why was she here, drenched to the bone, untouched by the chaos of the storm? Her eyes were wild, filled with an energy Claire couldn't recognize, an energy they had only ever seen in Rose. Run! Their mother screamed, glancing past them, the wild look of panic burning in her gaze. You have to leave this place. It's not safe. Mom, how are you here? What happened? Claire cried, stepping forward, but the urge to flee pressed upon her. Just then, the lights in the house flickered violently, and the shadows around them twisted and morphed with a life of their own. The thundering sky seemed to respond as the house creaked ominously. Then, in a sudden flash, their mother's voice broke through the chaos. The pact, it's not just a curse. I made a choice. I had to protect you from what I unleashed. What do you mean? Sophie shouted, her heart racing. This family, it's not who you think. There's more to our history. Her words were layered with desperation. Before any of them could react, the ground trembled. The figure of their mother seemed to dissipate, flickering like a faulty light. You must uncover the truth before it's too late. And just like that, she vanished into thin air, leaving nothing but the pounding rain and echoes of her warning. Claire collapsed to the ground, shock coursing through her. What just happened? She gasped. The world felt like it was spinning. Jake scrambled back toward the house, eyes wide with shock. We have to go, now! But Claire couldn't move. Questions swirled in her mind. What had their mother done? What truth was hidden in the shadows? And as thunder cracked again, Claire knew one thing for sure. The storm had just begun. Claire's heart pounded like a war drum, fear and confusion warring inside her. "What just happened?" she gasped, each word a struggle. The rain drummed on her skin, but it was nothing compared to the chills racing down her spine. The flickering lights from the house cast fragmented shadows, twisting them into dark shapes that seemed to reach for her. "Jake, we have to go!" she shouted, gripping Sophie's arm. Just. As a deafening crash of thunder shook the ground, the air felt electric, charged with fear and confusion. But something else lingered just beneath the surface, something darker. Jake rushed back from the garden, breathless, eyes wide with shock. "We can't stay here! This is bad!" The color drained from his face, the words spilling out like water from a cracked dam. "Bad? What's bad?" Claire's mind raced. She scanned the dark garden. The shadows around her mother's last known spot, swirling into chaos. What did Mom mean? But he didn't answer. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder, as if the storm itself were alive, waiting with bated breath. "We need to find out what's going on. What did she unleash?" He stumbled, looking back at the house. "We don't have much time!" Suddenly, Sophie broke free from Claire's grip, her voice a harsh whisper that sliced through the tension. "What if this is all a trick? Maybe she's playing us. What if it's a part of the curse?" There was a raw edge to her words, her gut knotting with dread. "Don't talk like that," Claire shot back, her voice laced with desperation. They needed to band together, but doubt festered, clawing at their unity. An unsettling silence enveloped them. Even the storm seemed to hold its breath. Then it hit. A low humming sound, pulsing like a heartbeat in the air, vibrating against their bones. It grew louder, encroaching on their thoughts, merging with their fears. "What is that?" Jake looked around, panic tightening in his throat. "Over there," Sophie pointed. To the house. Before anyone could react, the front door swung open with a creaking moan. It was Rose, but she wasn't the same. Her eyes shone with an unnatural glow, almost unsettling. "You shouldn't have come back here," she yelled, her voice clawing at their ears. The siblings exchanged looks. Confusion turned to alarm. This wasn't the grandmother they knew. "What's happening?" Claire yelled, backing away. "I can't hold it back," Rose cried, her hands shaking, fingers twitching, like they were trying to shake off an invisible weight. "The shadows are coming. And you," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent chills rippling through Claire's body. "You must leave. Now!" But as they turned to run, everything spiraled. From the ground beneath their feet, dark tendrils unfurled like smoke, slithering toward them. "Run!" Claire screamed, the instinct to survive kicking in. They bolted toward the house, but the shadows were faster, pulling at their ankles, whispering secrets in a language that felt like ice. And in the chaos, Claire caught a glimpse of something so unexpected that it made her blood run cold. In the blink of an eye, Jake swerved, moving toward the creeping shadows. "What are you doing?" she hollered, horrified. "I have to know," he shot back, defiance burning in his eyes. But in that moment, as he stepped closer, the shadows coiled around him, wrapping him like a shroud. "Jake!" Sophie screamed, rushing forward, but the air thickened, constricting around her. "You can't! You don't understand!" The shadows pulsed, and Claire felt a sickening twist. In her gut, the shadows hissed, coiling tighter around Jake. But then, as if sensing their despair, a vivid flash filled the yard. A blinding light erupted from Jake's chest. It burst forth, illuminating everything like a sun. And for a split second, Claire saw it all. Their family, their past, intertwined with darkness. Then it vanished. The light flickered, leaving them in a new darkness. The shadows shrieked, pulling Jake into their depths. One last word slipped from his lips. Help. Us, before he was gone. Claire fell to her knees, heart shattered. No, 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 she shrieked. But the sound was drowned by the storm, the house shaking with urgency. What had Jake unleashed? What was the truth behind the pact? As the winds howled, Rose's gaze seared into Claire's heart. Her expression shifting between grief and horror. It's not just a curse. Jake never was who you thought, she whispered, her voice cracking like the thunder rolling above. Every instinct in Claire screamed for answers, but the darkness was closing in. A sickening thought crept up her spine. Was it too late to save her brother? Could she trust the twisted family legacy she had barely begun to unravel? And as the shadows flickered around them, a singular truth echoed painfully in her mind. Everything she thought she knew was built on lies. Claire's heart shattered into a million pieces, the weight of loss sinking deep. Jake was gone, pulled into darkness as she knelt in the rain, cold droplets mixing with hot tears. The shadows twisted, whispering secrets only they could hear, and despair clawed at her throat. "What have you done?" she screamed at Rose, whose transformation left Claire feeling more alone than ever. Rose stammered, her voice trembling. "I didn't want this!" But why? What had Jake discovered? Claire's mind raced, spiraling with questions, dread settling like lead in her stomach. The shadows shifted, inching closer, and she could feel something monstrous lurking in their depths. "We have to get him back. We can't leave him," Sophie cried, frantically scanning the darkness. Rose's expression darkened, eyes darting to the creeping tendrils. "There's no pulling him back. Not now. He might be lost forever." "No!" Claire blurted, voice breaking. "He can't be lost. He's our brother." But even as she said it, a chilling realization washed over her. Maybe this wasn't just a curse. Maybe it was a choice, something Jake had uncovered that went deeper than any of them knew. A loud crack of thunder split the sky. Instinctively, Claire stepped back, her foundation crumbling. What did Mom mean? What did she unleash? The questions spilled out, each one a dagger. Then Rose turned, a desperate look in her eyes. "Claire, Sophie, listen, there's something I never revealed." Fear gripped Claire. "What do you mean? What else is there?" Suddenly, the shadowy tendrils unfurled, making the air pulsing with a hum. From the dark, a figure began to emerge. "No," Claire breathed. "It can't be." The figure twisted, and to Claire's shock, it was her mother, but not the way she remembered. Her eyes glowed like embers in the night, filled with a mix of fury and pain, radiating an energy that felt otherworldly. "Mom," Sophie whispered, stepping forward, hope threading through her fear. "Run, before it's too late," their mother's voice echoed, but twisted, almost distorted by the shadows. Before they could protest, a crack like a whip snapped through the rain-soaked air, sending electric shivers down their spines. And then it happened. The sky opened up, revealing a vortex at the center of the storm, pulling everything in. "Hold on!" Rose shouted, launching forward. But it was too late. The force gripped Claire, Sophie, and their mother, wrenching them toward the darkness. "Fight it!" came Rose's desperate voice, but shadows clawed at their minds, filling them with doubts. In that moment, a thunderous sound erupted, shaking the very essence of the estate. A flash of blinding white light exploded from the vortex, engulfing them. Claire shielded her eyes, heart racing. The world around them seemed to rupture, tearing the fabric of reality itself. And then, silence. When Claire opened her eyes, the storm had vanished. They stood not in the garden, but in a darkened room, familiar yet strange. "Where are we?" she stuttered, breathless. All around, family portraits hung on the walls. But each face looked back at her with hollow eyes. Shadows darted across the floor, and an uneasy chill settled in her bones. But it was a single frame that stole her breath. A picture of Jake at the center, glowing, perfect, and smiling. "Jake!" she whispered. Panic surged again. This wasn't just a family secret. Something fundamental was wrong. Something was twisted in their reality. I don't understand," Sophie whispered, voice shaking but resolute. "What happened?" Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed in the darkness, cold and detached. "Welcome home." Claire turned, and there stood another Jake, but different. His expression was devoid of warmth. "You shouldn't have come back." Chaos erupted in her mind, and confusion morphed into horror. "What? Who are you?" she gasped, disbelieving. The thing she thought she knew, the family they had always considered theirs, all of it was a lie. "Everything you are, everything you thought you understood, it's all part of the pact," said the other Jake, glancing at the shifting shadows. "And now you're part of it too." The truth loomed like a shadow closing in, a poison seeping through the cracks. An identity not just at risk, but fractured, redefined by darkness, and all Claire could think was this how it all began? What had they truly unleashed? And could they ever escape its grasp? The figure of the other Jake loomed, his face blank and chilling, sending a wave of icy fear through Claire's veins. She stepped back, heart pounding like a caged animal. "What do you mean? You can't be Jake!" The words came out like a desperate plea, but somewhere deep inside, a crack of doubt began to fester. The false Jake smiled, cold and unfeeling. "Of course I am, but you're not in the right story anymore. You're not the main characters. You never were." "What?" Sophie gasped, confusion rolling through her like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, the room shifted around them. Walls warped and twisted, shadows dancing like ghosts, as if the very essence of reality was tearing itself apart. Claire stumbled, her feet struggling to find solid ground as everything spun faster. And then it happened. A sudden jolt rocked the space, a burst of energy so fierce it felt like a thunderclap within her mind. All at once, Jake's expression changed, his face contorting in agony, and Claire felt it, too, a piercing pain slicing through her thoughts. "Stop! Just stop!" Claire screamed, hands clenching into fists as the ground rattled beneath her. The portraits all seemed to shift, their hollow eyes swirling with a madness that snatched her breath away. The alternate Jake's mouth twisted, as if he were struggling against the pull of something deep within him. "You shouldn't have come back," he murmured, voice like gravel, barely holding on to coherence. "It'll consume you like it did us." Suddenly, the air crackled, and Claire's breath hitched. A shadow extended from the corner of the room, vast and stretching, like a hungry beast. It lashed out, cold tendrils reaching for her, and in that moment, something snapped inside her. A surge of anger boomed in her chest, igniting a strength she didn't know she had. "Get away!" she shouted, feeling the energy build like a storm ready to break. But as she pushed against the darkness, she felt a flicker of light, A memory, familiar and warm. Her mother's laughter. Clarity slammed into her like a tidal wave. This isn't just about the pact, she yelled, grasping at the realization. It's about choice. You all made your choices. And so did I. The shifting shadows hesitated, as if her words struck a chord. She could see the other Jake's physique waver, flickering like a dying light bulb. It's not that easy, he yelled, voice trembling. You don't know what you're up against. Then tell me. Help me. There was desperation in her plea, and for a moment, a sliver of humanity broke through the darkness. Then she felt it, the tug beneath her feet, pulling at her very being. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Jake, she cried, but the words faded into the void. We were brought here, but you want us to become part of the shadows, don't you? The false Jake laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated like thunder. Oh, you're much smarter than I thought. Welcome to the family legacy. You see, it was never about haunting this house. It was about building a new one. A new beginning for us. In that moment, the real horror transfixed Claire. The shadows were not the enemy. They were the legacy. They were what bound the family together, rooted and twisted. What if Jake was right? What if they were only pawns in a game far older than themselves? Just as the thought settled in her mind, a blinding mist enveloped the room, the air thickening until it felt suffocating. Shadows swelled, up, around, over. And then a voice echoed, a familiar sound weaving through her consciousness. A whisper that chilled her to the bone. Claire, you must decide. Which side are you really on? The darkness thickened, blurring her vision, distorting her perception of everything she once knew. As chaos erupted around her, she knew, deep down, she had a choice, a line to cross. But what if the choice was not just her own? What if everything was connected in ways beyond her wildest imaginings? Would she abandon her brother? Would she risk everything for the truth? Or would she embrace the legacy now calling her name? Standing at the brink, heart racing, she felt the shadows tugging rebelliously. And suddenly, her own grip on reality slipped. No! Claire gasped, teetering at the edge of the next step. I won't let it take me. The vortex around her spun faster, a whirlwind of choice and consequence. And as she faltered, she sensed rising tides of darkness. What will you choose? The shadows hissed, echoing voices merging into one haunting symphony. And in a world now spiraling into chaos, Claire was left grasping for a thread of light, desperate to find where she truly belonged. Would she uncover the family's past? Or was she about to plunge into the abyss forever? The storm inside her raged, hungry for answers. But the shadows loomed, waiting for her next move. The darkness pulsed around Claire like a living thing, twisting and writhing, asking her to choose. Choose? She whispered, dread coiling in her gut. But all she could think was that she had to remember who she was. She had to remember her brother. The shadows seemed to cackle, swirling faster, choking her voice. You're part of this now, the other Jake taunted, a cruel smirk forming on his lips. The echo of their shared laughter twisted in her head, memories skimming the surface of her thoughts like raindrops over water. But then, something shifted. The air suddenly thickened with tension, a change brewing. The shadowy figure, still flickering, seemed to falter. Enough. A fierce voice broke through, crisp and commanding. Claire turned sharply, and there stood Rose, but different again, eyes ablaze, standing tall and defiant against the darkness. Her hands were raised, glowing faintly as if she had captured light itself. "You think you know what family means?" she spat, her words sharp enough to cut through the fog. "You don't know what you've been chosen for." "What are you talking about?" Claire's voice trembled. The fear washed away momentarily by the sudden surge of urgency she felt in her grandmother's presence. But would it be enough? "I've kept you safe from this for too long," Rose shouted, glancing at the shadows twisting around Jake. "But it's time you know the truth." "Stop!" Sophie cried, her voice cracking. "You're our family! You can't want this!" But the shadows hissed back. Drawing closer, a deep rumble echoed through the room, a familiar sound. It was thunder, reverberating through every crevice. Claire felt the electricity in the air build, pressing down like a weight. Then came the twist, everything around her blurred, reality flickering like a candle's flame. The walls of the room began to peel back, revealing something beyond anything Claire ever imagined. A deep chasm, limitless and dark as night. "No! No!" Claire's heart raced while she stumbled backward, nearly colliding with Sophie. In the chasm, she saw faces, thousands of faces trapped in an endless loop of screams and sorrow. The cries filled her ears, echoing deeper than her fears could reach. "Your family isn't who you think." Rose's voice penetrated the rising chaos. "What do you think I've been protecting you from? Do you want the real legacy of this family? What if you found out we are part of something much larger?" "What are you saying?" Claire's voice cracked. The disbelief shook her core. But before Rose could respond, the other Jake lunged forward, eyes wild and desperate. "No, this isn't our legacy! It's a curse, a mistake! Claire, you have to listen to me!" "No!" Rose screamed, throwing her hands up as if to shield them. The shadows intensified, flicking like darts toward the ground, and in a brilliant flash of light, everything froze. One last pulse of energy washed through them, and Claire caught a glimpse of a figure rising from the chasm. A monstrous silhouette, crowned with twisted limbs, beckoning for something far darker. "Jake!" Claire screamed, realization dawning. "You're not my brother. You—" But just as the truth hung in the air, the ground beneath them heaved, and in that split second, everything shattered. The room exploded, a blinding light swallowing them whole. When it faded, Claire found herself alone. Alone. And then the darkness whispered again, "Closer now. Welcome home." But this time, it wasn't just a voice. It was her own. The darkness pulsed around Claire, like it was breathing, waiting, eager for her acceptance. "Welcome home," it whispered again, smooth as silk, but sharp as a knife, slashing through any remnants of hope. Claire's heart raced, echoing in her ears. She felt utterly alone. But just then, a voice broke through the silence. Her own voice, layered with the weight of every moment lost. "What do you want from me?" she cried, desperation spilling into the air. "Who am I supposed to be?" The shadows seemed to quiver, but the shape before her didn't waver. The other Jake smirked again, his features unnaturally smooth, devoid of the warmth she remembered. "The question is, what are you willing to embrace?" Before she could answer, the room shuddered violently, walls vibrating. More screams echoed from deep within her own mind, drowning out her panicked thoughts. Alarms she didn't even know existed rang loud, cracking the air like razor wire. Then it hit her. The monstrous silhouette rising from the chasm wasn't a stranger. It was something familiar, something buried deep within her own heart. "No, you can't be," she stared, breath hitching, each word sticking in her throat. The figure morphed, shadow stretching until it took a final shape, a reflection, a mirror. Claire stumbled backward, horror dawning. it was her. But not just her. It was an echo, a dark version of herself, twisted and laughing with the joy of malice. "What?" Sophie shouted, disbelief choking her. "No way! That can't be you!" "Yes," the shadow Claire screeched, voice ringing with sickening glee. "Deep down, you know the truth. You can't run from what you are. You're just like me." "It's a lie!" Claire shouted back, tears streaming down her face. But deep inside, doubt began to swell. The sickening laughter echoed in her ears, surrounding her, puncturing her heart. The shadow grinned wider, eyes glowing like embers, revealing every secret she tried to suppress. "You wished for power, didn't you?" it taunted, voice sweet like poison. "You always wanted to be more." "No, that's not true." Claire thrust her hands forward, the flickering shadows recoiling, but it only fed the other Claire's power. The room warped again, lights dimming, colors bleeding into one another. Suddenly, the air crackled louder, a wave of energy washing over her. An idea shifted in the chaos. "You think you're separate from this darkness," a shadow whisper laughed. "But you are the legacy. You're the one they chose." "No," Claire breathed, clenching her fists, the pain of the revelation pouring out. "Mom, she never wanted this for me, for any of us. Oh, she wanted you to carry it, to continue our legacy. In our blood runs the essence of the shadows." The mockery pierced her resolve, rattling her core. And just like that, Rose staggered forward, ripping through the shadows surrounding them. "Stop!" her voice rang out, filled with a desperate urgency. "I've always tried to protect you." But the darkness shifted, disobeying her every command. Claire whipped around, eyes wide. "Protect us or control us?" she questioned, breathless. Rose faltered for just a moment, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. "I wanted to give you a choice, but you must choose wisely," she admitted, her voice tightening like a noose. The other Claire laughed harder, a sound that pierced the very fabric of Claire's sanity. "You think you can fight this? You could have it all, sister. Power, freedom. Just embrace your destiny." "No!" Claire screamed, feeling the world spin around her. "I won't let you. You're not even real." But everything transformed. Fissures opened, revealing not just her shadow but something more terrifying. A flood of images, memories, and twisted truths. Suddenly, the realization struck her. Jake didn't just disappear. He was taken because he was part of you. And then, chaos erupted. Claire felt the pull, the tangled fibers of fate snapping into place. She understood. It was all connected. The communication of pain, every scar from a family secret led her here. Then, before anyone could comprehend, the room shifted again. Reality warped. Shadows blurred, twisted into a singular mass, rolling like an ocean. Claire's heart pounded like thunder as she glimpsed another figure forming, an even darker presence. Her father emerged, eyes void of past warmth, powerful yet chilling. "Father?" Claire's voice broke, the coldness of the connection shivering her soul. "You were—" All the pieces aligned. Nightmares of the past clicked into place. Every sacrifice made for a twisted legacy. Yet the moment he grinned, Claire realized, "You're not free, and neither am I." As the shadows enveloped them, one question lingered, chilling her to the bone. Would they let her choose, or had her choice already been made? The shadows writhed, pressing in, as Claire's heart raced like a drum in her ears. "You're not free, and neither am I," she shouted, her voice a challenge against the dark. The air crackled with tension, every breath heavy with foreboding. She had to ground herself, focus on the truth that surged inside her. The other Jake laughed, but it was a hollow sound, a crack in his masked facade. "You think you can fight me?" he sneered, but even he seemed unsure. The darkness curled around them like a predator, hungry and waiting. Then Rose stepped forward, commanding, light glowing in her hands. But the darkness shuddered. A growl, deep and primal, shook the walls, and Claire felt the chasm widen into something more, something darker. "This isn't just about us," Rose shouted, eyes fierce as fire. "It's about everything we've tried to keep contained." And then the dark silhouette formed once more, but it shifted, morphing, revealing a horrifying truth. The figure split apart, elongated into two haunting forms. Claire clenched her fists, heart pounding. First shape unfurled, her father, with that familiar, sinister grin. The second shadow twisted, revealing her mother, but with eyes filled with anguish, a darkness clinging to her. "No! No! What is happening?" Claire gasped, mind spinning like the shapes before her. Her parents battled against the cackling darkness, but they seemed like marionettes in a puppet show run by shadows. "Claire," she heard her mother's voice, a whisper against the chaos. "Listen to me. It's not what you think. We made choices for you." The words enveloped her like a shroud. "What do you mean?" she shouted, desperate for the truth. "What did you do?" Her father stepped forward, shadow weaving around him. "We formed the pact to give you strength, to protect you from what you truly are. But we lost ourselves in it." "No, you're lying!" Claire screamed, anger bursting forth. "You made a choice to bury me in this darkness." The shadows clenched tighter around her, pulling her toward them. "Enough!" yelled the other Jake, his voice cracking through the layers of chaos. "You want the truth? Fine. We're all part of it." His form flickered again, and inside that flicker, Claire felt her own heartbeat quicken, panic rising. "You were never meant to come back. This place calls to those like us. Our very blood is the binding essence." And then, in a heartbeat, the world shifted again. Rose's hands glowed brighter, illuminating the dark. But the shadows resisted, and with a furious howl, they lunged forward, smashing into the walls around them. The estate quaked, a symphony of screams and whispers enveloping Claire. Amid the chaos, a flicker of hope sprang in Claire's chest. "We won't be part of this darkness," she shouted, gathering every ounce of strength. The walls expanded, cracking, and the shadows recoiled slightly at her fervor. But then, without warning, the room exploded in light, a blinding radiance swallowing them whole. Claire shielded her eyes, but she could feel the shadows retreating, their power waning. "What?" The crack echoed loudly before silence descended. She opened her eyes to a void, wide and empty. Alone. Her heart thumped painfully as the realization hit. Where is everyone? No. Fear clenched her throat. Suddenly, a figure emerged, a silhouette against the bright backdrop, and Claire's breath caught. It was Jake, stepping toward her from the brightness. But there was something different. Something unsettling. "I'm here, Claire," he said softly, but his voice lacked warmth. "Jake?" Her heart raced. "You're alive!" Yet as he stepped closer, Claire noticed the haunting emptiness in his eyes. "What happened?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not the Jake you remember. Not anymore." The ground beneath Claire's feet trembled, and then the shock hit. Jake reached out, but his touch was cold, unyielding. "What do you mean?" Her voice trembled, fear coursing through her veins. "What did you become?" In that moment, the shadows returned, swirling around them thick and heavy. You see, Claire, I am the legacy now, and you have a choice to make. The shadows enveloped him whole, pulling him into their depths, leaving behind nothing but an echo of her brother's haunting laughter. Claire's thoughts exploded in turmoil. No, she screamed, hopelessness flooding her mind. She had to find a way out, had to face the truth of who she was, who they all were. But a new revelation twisted within her. Perhaps, right then, the pact was not just a curse. Maybe it was liberation. Would she embrace the darkness to save Jake? Or would she fight it and risk losing everything? And as the whispers climbed around her, the question lingered. Could she face the truth when her own flesh and blood had become a stranger? The darkness pulsed around Claire, like it was breathing, waiting, eager for her acceptance. "Welcome home," it whispered again, smooth as silk, but sharp as a knife, slashing through any remnants of hope. Claire's heart raced, echoing in her ears. She felt utterly alone. But just then, a voice broke through the silence. Her own voice, layered with the weight of every moment lost. "What do you want from me?" she cried, desperation spilling into the air. "Who am I supposed to be?" The shadows seemed to quiver, but the shape before her didn't waver. The other Jake smirked again, his features unnaturally smooth, devoid of the warmth she remembered. "The question is, what are you willing to embrace?" Before she could answer, the room shuddered violently, walls vibrating. More screams echoed from deep within her own mind, drowning out her panicked thoughts. Alarms she didn't even know existed rang loud, cracking the air like razor wire. Then it hit her. The monstrous silhouette rising from the chasm wasn't a stranger. It was something familiar, something buried deep within her own heart. "No, you can't be!" She stared, breath hitching, each word sticking in her throat. The figure morphed, shadow stretching until it took a final shape, a reflection, a mirror. Claire stumbled backward, horror dawning. It was her. But not just her. It was an echo, a dark version of herself, twisted and laughing with the joy of malice. "What?" Sophie shouted, disbelief choking her voice. "No way, that can't be you!" "Yes," the shadow Claire screeched, voice ringing with sickening glee. "Deep down you know the truth. You can't run from what you are. You're just like me." "No!" Claire shouted, feeling the world spin around her. "I won't let you. You're not even Leal." But everything transformed. Fissures opened, revealing not just her shadow, but something more terrifying. A flood of images, memories, and twisted truths. Suddenly, the realization struck her. Jake didn't just disappear. He was taken because he was part of you. And then chaos erupted. Claire felt the pull, the tangled fibers of fate snapping into place. She understood. It was all connected. The communication of pain, every scar from a family secret led her here. Then, before anyone could comprehend, the room exploded in light, a blinding radiance swallowing them. Claire shielded her eyes, but she could feel the shadows retreating, their power waning. "What?" The crack echoed loudly before silence descended. She opened her eyes to a void, wide and empty, alone. Her heart thumped painfully as the realization hit. Where is everyone? No. Fear clenched her throat. Suddenly, a figure emerged, a silhouette against the bright backdrop, and Claire's breath caught. It was Jake, stepping toward her from the brightness. But there was something different, something unsettling. "I'm here, Claire," he said softly, but his voice lacked warmth. "Jake?" Her heart raced. "You're alive!" Yet as he stepped, Closer, Claire noticed the haunting emptiness in his eyes. What happened? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm not the Jake you remember. Not anymore. The ground beneath Claire's feet trembled, and then the shock hit. Jake reached out, but his touch was cold, unyielding. What do you mean? Her voice trembled, fear coursing through her veins. What did you become? In that moment, the shadows returned, swirling around them, thick and heavy. You see, Claire, I am the legacy now. And you have a choice to make. The shadows enveloped him whole, pulling him into their depths, leaving behind nothing but an echo of her brother's haunting laughter. Claire's thoughts exploded in turmoil. No, she screamed, hopelessness flooding her mind. She had to find a way out, had to face the truth of who she was, who they all were. But a new revelation twisted within her. Perhaps right then, the pact was not just a curse. Maybe it was liberation. Would she embrace the darkness to save Jake, or would she fight it and risk losing everything? And as the whispers climbed around her, the question lingered. Could she face the truth when her own flesh and blood had become a stranger? Suddenly, another pulse of light broke through the shadows. Claire stumbled, shielding her eyes again, and there before her stood the ghostly image of her parents, translucent but somehow glowing with warmth. We're not lost, her mother whispered, voice echoing, and for a moment it felt real, felt alive. Tears spilled from Claire's eyes. Mom, Dad, listen, her father urged, raising his hand as if to calm the storm swirling around them. We made choices, but those choices don't have to define you. She felt the power surge again, the darkness flaring in anger at their presence. What do you mean? What choices? But their faces twisted then, contorting as if being pulled by invisible strings into shadow. You must decide before the pact consumes you all, they echoed, their forms fading. No! Claire shouted, reaching for them, desperation clawing at her throat. You can't leave me! Yet as they shimmered and vanished, the shadows roared, a cacophony of mourning filling the void. The darkness surged forward, threatening to swallow her whole. Panic closed in tight, and suddenly she understood. Her family didn't just lose the pact. They were all part of a game, a lie that ran deeper than blood. The other Jake's figure twisted back into focus, glaring at her with a wicked smile. Welcome back to the fold, Claire. And then the world exploded into chaos once more, her choices twisting endlessly before her. Just when she thought she might break, the shadows recoiled suddenly, revealing behind them a velvet curtain draped in gold. It shimmered ominously, almost inviting. What is that? Claire whispered. Instinctively taking a step back, the air thick with dread. It's the exit, the other Jake sneered, leaning into her personal space, sinister eyes glinting. The portal to your true potential. The shadows surged, the room spinning wildly, and Claire caught a glimpse of something shimmering beyond, a shadowy reflection morphing into the face of her brother, her real brother, vibrant and full of life. Choose wisely, shouted her real Jake, just before darkness enveloped her. The weight of the choice pressed down, threatening to crush her beneath it all. Could she choose darkness and save him? Or would the golden curtain truly offer her a way out? The tension built, thickening the air, and Claire felt the last remnants of her hope flicker. Was it even a choice? And as the storm inside raged, an unseen whisper echoed. You can change everything, or lose everything. And she stood on the brink, waiting for her answer, Claire stood at the crossroads of light and darkness, her heart racing like a freight train. Shadows writhed hungrily around her, but she felt something shift within, a fierce resolve igniting every fiber of her being. "I am not part of you," she shouted, her voice piercing the heavy air, sliding through the confusion that threatened to suffocate her. The other Jake's eyes widened, but then he laughed, that sharp, cruel laughter echoing through the chaos. "You think you can fight your fate?" he sneered, but uncertainty flickered in his gaze. All the whispers melded into a cacophony, chaos tightening its grip around her. Yet somehow, in that storm, a fragile thread of clarity appeared, a vision, a glimmer of warmth. Claire could almost hear her parents, their voices blending into a harmony that pushed back the creeping shadows. "You have the power to change your path," her mother had whispered. But now it was her own voice resonating, shaking through the dense fog. "I will not be bound by this legacy." She felt the warmth swell within her, flowing through her veins, wrapping around the shadows like a constrictor. The darkness pulled back, revealing the path ahead. The golden curtain shimmered enticingly, beckoning her to embrace it. "This is the moment to choose," she murmured, the urgency crashing through her. She could feel her brother's essence. To save him, she needed to dive headlong into the unknown. With a deep, shuddering breath, she charged toward the golden curtain, thoughts of Jake propelling her forward. As she made contact, the fabric rippled, sending shockwaves of energy throughout her entire being. The air split open, and in a blinding flash, she was enveloped in brilliant light. She felt every fear, every doubt fall away. She was not just Claire anymore. She was the legacy, the choice, the possibility of hope beyond darkness. Footsteps thundered behind her, and she heard her family, her brother, her parents, crying out her name. "Claire, don't go!" But she was already stepping through, the golden light swallowing her whole. And then silence. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing on the other side, surrounded by a tranquil glade, the sun pouring through a canopy of leaves. The noise of the storm had vanished, replaced by the chirping of birds and the gentle rustle of the wind. She felt the warmth of the sunlight on her skin, soothing her frayed nerves. "Claire!" A desperate voice echoed through the peace. And there stood Jake, wide with life, flames dancing in his irises. Claire rushed to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're okay. I thought I lost you." Jake nodded, breathless, relief washing over him. "You saved us. You ended it." "Ended what?" Claire looked around, the brightness almost blinding. "The pact," Jake whispered, his eyes shining. "It's broken. We're free." In that moment, she understood. The shadows that had threatened to engulf her were merely fears, a reflection of their haunted history. They were free to forge their own legacy, one not dictated by bloodlines or darkness. She turned and saw their parents emerging from the light, ethereal and radiant. There was no sadness in their eyes now, just a flicker of understanding and love. "We're proud of you, Claire," her mother said. "You chose hope over despair." As they embraced, the past washed away, leaving nothing but warmth and acceptance. They were a family, united not by a curse, but by the choices they had made. They could walk into the light together, their bond stronger than any darkness. And as Claire stood there, surrounded by the people she loved, she felt an unbreakable connection, their laughter intertwining with the rustle of leaves. It was a new beginning, unshackled from the weight of the past. But her heart still whispered a truth. Freedom comes with responsibility. They would tell their story, share their legacy, and help others find their path through the shadows, because they had tasted darkness and emerged into the light. And just as the world brightened around them, A voice echoed in the silence. You must choose. Claire turned, the golden beams illuminating her once more. Who will we become? She responded, hope soaring high. The future stretched before them, endless and bright, as they stepped forward together, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you have to subscribe right now to the channel so you don't miss any of the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Your support means everything.